Kurt Saxon, welcome back to Sphinx Radio, the series on survivalism. How are you?
I'm fine.
Now, Kurt, I want everyone to know that we're approaching 7 million people unemployed who've lost their jobs in the United States just recently, really since fall of 2008. This is being recorded in August of 2009. There'll probably be a lot more people laid off, maybe up to 10 million people. There might even be that many now if you consider people who work part-time aren't counted. So I really strongly recommend to people that they go to kurtsaxon.com, 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 and survivalplus.com. Now, when you get there, you can buy on disc as an ebook for your computer. You can order this book on disc. It's called The Survivor, Volume 2 by Kurt Saxon, and it's published by Atlan Formularies. And you can get this. It's available on disc as part of their survival series at kurtsaxon.com and survivalplus.com. Now, Kurt, I was looking through this book, and I have to say I congratulate you. Survivor 2 is wonderful, especially this article on page 595 called The Tanks Are Coming, Practical Hydroponics. Could you tell us a bit about how you got interested in hydroponic home farming?
Well, hydroponics is more commonly known as soilless gardening.
Right, soilless gardening, and that means what do you use? What do you put the roots of these like different vegetables in?
Well, the base can be either sand or very small gravel.
Sand or very small gravel. Very good. And what sorts of vegetables can you grow in a like a home hydroponic garden?
Well, anything you can think of.
Really, that's very true, and I want to tell everyone out there that my brother grows homemade organic tomatoes hydroponically, and he does 2 or 3 batches throughout the summer. Now, what I do is I get a big batch of them, and I make myself up some spaghetti sauce. I love Italian food, and I preserve it and jar it. Now, I put a lot of spices in it. I make a really nice sauce out of it. But I preserve it and I leave it for up to 6 months, and for free, I have the most delicious spaghetti sauce you've ever tasted, because while that is sealed in that jar, all the spices are marinating. They're preserved, but they're also marinating. So if you want the most delicious food, hydroponically grown organic food, I particularly like. Now, Kurt, you have a tire garden. You do some hydroponic farming at your farm, is that right?
No.
No, you're not doing hydroponic now? You still have the tire garden, though, right?
Yes, but it's just soil in the tires.
It's soil in the... so you're not doing hydroponic. Have you done hydroponic stuff in the past, or do you just pass on the information so others can do it?
Well, it's very basic and very elementary, and I've got 2 books in my DVD set. Incidentally, the DVD set has everything we've ever published.
Right, that's true. You get the Poor Man's James Bond series, and you also get the complete Survivor series, and you also get some other of your occult books, Keeping Score on Our Modern Prophets, and just a lot of... and what I love most about this DVD series that has all these books, they also have your old shortwave radio show programs that you did in the 90s, which are still really excellent, and still very, a lot of practical information in them about everything to do with survivalism. And as I say, Kurt, we're between 7 and 10 million people unemployed, so getting this Survivor series is well worth the money, because you learn to do things like grow your own food at home, all your own herbs and spices, tomatoes, cabbage, carrots, anything you can imagine you can grow at home. and you can slash your budget, and you can also have the most delicious organic food, and food you grow yourself, is safe. Wouldn't you agree, Kurt? You're not using...
Well, of course.
You're not getting this genetically modified stuff that they're putting out in supermarkets. You're not getting questionable organic foods. You're not the standards for what they call organic keep getting less and less and less. So if you can grow your own organic food, or even if you don't want to grow organic food, you can still do this. But it's amazing how delicious homegrown vegetables are. As I say, I have them from my brother, and I actually do my own herbs. And the difference between a fresh homegrown herb and what you get in a bottle is like the difference between instant coffee and fresh ground coffee. It's a world. Wouldn't you agree? Homegrown fresh herbs are just delicious in all your food. Kurt.
Well, anything you grow yourself is better than what you buy in the market because, for one thing, it hardly costs anything at all.
Oh, it's just for pennies. Cost-wise, that's probably the number one reason you want to do it. But a very close second is how delicious and more flavorful these vegetables are. I got a tomato, a regular non-organic tomato, just to try one at my local supermarket, and it tastes like it was made of wax. It was one of these genetically altered, horrible things, It was like a piece of wax or plastic. It was terrible compared to my brother's like homegrown organic tomatoes, which as I say, you can do also. You can leave some on and vine ripen them and use them for cooking right away. There's so many uses for this, and you can grow so many different things. And just to let people know once more, they can get this in the DVD package at kurtsaxon.com, or survivalplus.com. There's also a ton of free information about survivalism and gardening on those pages that you don't have to pay for, that you can take a look at. But certainly consider buying the Survivor series on DVD. Kurt Saxon is the man who coined the word survivalist in a 1976 publication of his. So he's really the granddaddy. And you see things in the news, Kurt, these days about people who've been thrown out of their homes and are in tent cities, and people are actually forming little communities here and there who've been dispossessed. And these are the people who really benefit the most from the Survivor series, and you can watch it on any DVD anywhere in libraries or anywhere you can get to a computer or a laptop. You can look at this information. So I strongly encourage people to buy it. Now, Kurt, the stuff you grow on your farm is very good. Now, what are other things people can do to cut back on money? Is there information on preserving foods in this DVD set?
Oh, yes. There's a complete course on foods and everything you can think of. And there is even a 1758 cookbook by Elijah Smith. Is probably the most comprehensive cookbook up to that time. That's nearly 300 years ago. And it's also a medical manual. And Elijah Smith worked 30 years for the richest people in England, and they always threw parties. And she would buttonhole the doctors that attended and ask for their favorite cures, and they would give them their favorite cures, and she'd put them in her book. And those doctors were probably the finest doctors of that time. They weren't quacks.
Right, and there's a lot of herbal remedies that have been proven since then that they offer that are very, very effective. So this is really sound information on herbal medicine, and that is also an organic cookbook if you really want to think about it, because back in those days they didn't have all this genetically altered food and pesticides on vegetables. So the way they cooked things back then with whole grains, whole oats, is quite amazing. And when you use these organic products like those they did back in those days, I just want people to know that this cookbook, when you eat a piece of this bread, I made a loaf based on a recipe in that book. When you make a piece of organic bread, it tastes so much different, and it's so much more filling and fulfilling than this horrible store-bought bread that they pump air into and use horrible chemicals. This is like the most delicious bread you've ever eaten. There's even ways to sweeten it up a little without adding to the calories with honey breads and things like that. I made a honey bread, and it's quite amazing how delicious, like an oat honey loaf of bread and these different variations on recipes that you get in that cookbook. And as I say, this is an opportunity not only to save money on making your own breads, but it's also an opportunity to taste the most delicious bread you've ever eaten in your life. And I say that I've done it myself, and I highly recommend it. Now, Kurt, is there information in your DVD series that people can get at kurtsaxon.com about making their own booze, alcohol?
Yes.
Homemade alcohol, because a lot of people like to drink, let's face it, and liquor stores are quite expensive. So are there recipes for beer and wine and things of that nature?
Oh, yes. Everything you can think of in that thing. Have you ever gotten drunk on your own homemade booze?
I must admit, I've never made my own hooch. I should try one day, but that's something I haven't done. Is it very good? Tell us about it.
Well, I used to. I don't drink anymore because I have diabetes and I can't drink alcohol. But I used to make my own booze, and anyone can do it. And my article in the Survivors tell how to do it. It would be a great saving for a person who had to have booze.
Oh, sure. I mean, when you consider that you can also make a really delicious beers. Now, I haven't done it myself, but I have tasted homebrew beer. A friend of mine up in New Hampshire runs his own little home consumption operation, and I actually gave him a copy, a DVD set as a gift, and he really enjoyed it. He picked up a few tips about how to actually age beer at home and such, but he makes the most delicious ales and beers that you've ever drunk, far better than anything you'll get out of a tap and far better than anything you will get out of a bottle. There again, you can do little variations, add little flavors, have it your way. If there's a particular flavor you like in a beer, you can add a little more to it. The same with, wine presses and things like that. And you can even make liquors. Now, if you make it for home consumption, it's perfectly legal. They probably won't even find out about it. And it's nothing that really makes a mess or smells or anything. I mean, you'll get a little smell from alcohol, but it's something you can do. It's fairly safe in brewing home beer. My grandfather, my dad used to tell me, used to brew his own home beer during Prohibition. And that's quite, a lot of people did it back then. And if nothing else, if you want cheap, delicious beer, you can, you can cheer up from the meltdown and make your own beer and invite your friends over and have a very cheap beer party and have them bring the pizza. Or there's even recipes for pizza in this DVD series. You can make a nice homemade organic pizza and beer party for your friends, and you can get all of this great information on the DVD series at kurtsaxon.com and survivalplus.com. Now, Kurt, there was an article in the paper the other day about how people are actually returning to repairing items rather than replacing them with the economic meltdown. Now, in this DVD series, there's a lot of information on repairs, even things like sewing and things of that nature. Could you tell us a bit about that? Clothes making and repair?
Well, a couple of hundred years ago, the average American family had their own means of production. Everyone had their own little home workshop where they could make things to sell and trade. Also, there weren't many canned goods in the stores in those days. And so everyone processed their own foods. grew the food in the garden. They grew their own pigs and chickens. Everyone was independent of the system. And that made for a lot healthier people.
Right.
They were a lot smarter then, too. The IQ is going down like a stone.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's quite amazing how people are being dumbed down. It's quite shocking. And it's quite wonderful because there's all information about repairing and sewing clothes and making your own clothes in this DVD set, which is another thing people had to do 100 years ago. And what I really want to impress upon people, what you make yourself, once you get a skill down, it becomes second nature to you. They call it unconscious competence in psychology. It's where you master something to the point where you just can kind of automatically do it. It's not a lot of energy. It's kind of like washing your floor. You know exactly how to do it. You sweep it, and then you wash it. You use your favorite soap, and you kind of do that unconsciously. And you're usually thinking about other things or listening to music while you do it, and all of a sudden you're done. And that's the same thing with any skill, including things like clothes making and processing your own food and preserves, and things like that. And the clothes you make are actually quite beautiful, and the food you produce and make is delicious. It's far better tasting than anything you'll get in a supermarket. You can even make your own dried meats. You can get cheap cuts of meat, and you can make a kind of delicious sweet beef jerky that's actually low in salt and calories, if you want it to be that way. That's quite delicious for snacking. You can make your own snacks. Now, in this DVD, there is also a film that you made on survivalism, which is really outstanding, where you show how to grind different grains, how to make all sorts of things. I love your corn chip recipe, by the way, Kurt. In the cooking section, you have a great recipe for corn chips. They're the most delicious ones I've ever eaten. I cook them once a week in my deep fryer. They cost, you can make a big batch of them for pennies, hardly anything. And that with a nice salsa recipe I have, it's far more delicious than anything you get in a Mexican restaurant or a supermarket. And I thank you for that one. What's your favorite recipe that you did in that series?
Well, I like the corn chips too. Basically, all you have to do is you make something. You just like with you using corn, it's about half white flour and half cornmeal, and you moisten it and you roll it out, and then you cut it into strips, and you drop those strips into melted fat, and they sink to the bottom. And then when they're done, they rise to the top, and they're ready to eat. And you can't buy better stuff.
No,
absolutely totally tasty.
I'm telling you. You know what I did with them? Listen to this, Kurt. I made a batch the other night. These corn chips, and I want to say that when you buy this DVD set at KurtSaxon.com or SurvivalPlus.com, in this film that you'll get, you can watch it on your computer. Kurt will run you through these steps in a film. It's a little cooking show, and he'll show you how to make these corn chips step by step right from scratch. So you can watch it a couple times and just follow through. They're real easy to make. What I did is I made up a batch of them, and then I sprinkled some really nice sea salt on them while they were still hot. I let them cool a little bit, and then I melted some organic tofu, a cheese substitute that tastes just like cheddar cheese, but it's tofu. I melted that on top of it, and then I put my homemade salsa. I tell you right now, Kurt, you could not get anything more delicious in any restaurant or supermarket. And that's my little recipe on it. After you make the corn chips, just dash it, cover them with sea salt. Use plenty of salt. This is a salty dish. It's not something you want to eat every day. If you want them every day, don't use as much salt. But this particular dish, you can have it as a treat on a Friday night. I'll repeat it once more. You use Kurt Saxon's recipe that you can get at kurtsaxon.com on his DVD set, and you put some sea salt, then melt organic tofu. You can get it at a health food store, and ask them for the cheddar cheese flavor. Melt that on it. You can even put it under a broiler for about 30 seconds or until the cheese melts, and then put some homemade salsa or any salsa you like. This is the most delicious thing you will ever eat. And there again, with these, I use organic products myself. With these organic products, they fill you up. You feel, you're not hungry for 45 minutes after you eat them or an hour. They're delicious. They're inexpensive. They're delicious, and they keep you filled, and they give you some energy too. It's those are good things to eat. And Kurt, one other thing now, you have some interesting recipes. Just to wrap up, you have some soda pop recipes on this DVD set. Is that correct?
Yes, anything you can think of, just about.
Now, I did the root beer recipe, which you can find in Survivor 2 on the DVD set, and I went through 2 batches, just practicing and doing little variations as I liked it. And the third batch is the most delicious root beer I've ever had in my life. It's better than Barks. It's better than A&W. It's better than any of these microbrewery root beers. It's really delicious. And there again, I use all organic products myself. Now, people out there can use whatever they want. It's still a delicious recipe, but I still like the organic factor myself. And the root beer recipe, as I said, I still got some left. I'm going to have some right after the show to wet my whistle after talking. But just for the root beer recipe, people should go to kurtsaxon.com or survivalplus.com and get this great DVD series. It will teach you how to slash your budget, grow your own food, repair your own items, make your own clothes, make cheap and delicious recipes from Whole Foods, and you can decide the course of your eating habits, and you can get away from all these chemicals and processed foods, sodium glutamate and all this stuff they're putting in all our food, high fructose corn syrup. You can avoid things like that altogether. Now, Kurt, is there anything else? We're about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to say to finish off the show?
Well, they keep talking about college tuition keep going up and up and up. And I think a person who gets a set of these DVDs, he can forget about going to one of these colleges, because that was a much greater college course right in your own home. When you really study this material, because a person goes to college, gets a degree in something, and he sells himself to a corporation, and he's nothing from then on. But if you learn to do these things yourself, if you learn a trade, I've got 2 sayings. The first saying is your only value lies in what you produce. And the second saying is your best investment is in your own means of production. And these DVD sets will show anyone how to set up their own means of production, where you can produce things to sell or trade, like at flea markets or even sell on eBay, and you'll never have to buy another gift. And Granddad's wonderful book of toys would make any family a toy-making factory.
And wow, as you say, you can sell a lot of these items on eBay and start yourself an eBay business. Now, there are over 1 million people who make their money selling all sorts of items on eBay. And if you start up an eBay business, let's say on homemade toys or all sorts of things, you could do stained glass artwork, which you can get in the DVD series. You can do all sorts of things, wrought iron work that you can sell as ornamental work, and you can sell this all on eBay. And remember, there are over 1 million people who are still making their living on eBay, and you can even make these items and you can get someone else on eBay to sell them for you. You give them a cut, and all you have to do is produce them, take the orders, and ship them, and you get your cut of the money. And you can make quite a deal doing this, and there'll always be people who want home-crafted items of different kinds, homemade dolls, homemade ducks with wheels on them. You could start your own thing, and go for quality and master these trades and produce them at your house. And you can produce a bunch of them and then sell them and do what you like. You can read all the other books on the DVD series, which, again, are very fascinating. All sorts of historical books as well. There's a great book on the Crusades you can get in there. There's a great book on Germany in the 30s. Look to Germany, very strange book by an American. And people should really take a look at this DVD series. They can get it at kurtsaxon.com or survivalplus.com. And Kurt, thank you so much again for being on Sphinx Radio, and I really enjoy this series.
Anytime.